Hello everyone and good evening. My name is Don Arleth and welcome to our main edition of World News Tonight here on TVP World. Tonight we'll be focusing on the elections in Germany's Brandenburg region, where according to exit polls, Chancellor Olaf Scholz's Social Democratic Party has just narrowly beaten the far-right Alternative for Germany. That and much more in just a moment, but first off, let's take a look at tonight's headlines. Residents and authorities struggle with the aftermath of devastating floods. The opposition ANO party has scored some major victories in the Czech Republic's regional elections. And tensions between Israel and Hezbollah are on the rise once again. We start off tonight with the flood wave or surge, which is flowing downstream on the Oder River and has reached another city, Głogów. A few houses were inundated in the city, and high water levels are responsible for several other disruptions. On site is our reporter Ovidiusz Nichea, who's been observing the situation there since this morning. Good evening, Ovidiusz. Can you tell us what is the current situation there in Głogów at this moment?
The situation here is stable. The flood wave has reached the city at 2 p.m. local time. Now standing on the edge of the embankment here, there is about half a meter still to go, and the good news is the water level will not rise. However, a western suburb here was flooded. We saw that a few houses were inundated. There were also dozens of yards were flooded there. The water reached the height of 1.20 meters at its most. Another disruptions in the city include some flooded railway lines. A railway line between two major cities in southwestern Poland, Wrocław and Zielona Góra, was flooded here, and that's why trains on that line needed to be rerouted or cancelled altogether. Now the flood wave has reached the level of 6 meters 90 centimeters. That's about 10 centimeters lower than during the devastating flood of 1997, which is dubbed the flood of the millennium. However, the situation here is very serious, and today all eyes of Poles, including the Prime Minister, were on Głogów. And let's take a listen to what the Prime Minister of Poland, Donald Tusk, said about the city in his crisis meeting.
We are still dealing with situations which I can't say have been put behind us when it comes to the flood itself. Both in Głogów and Nowa Sól, emotions are running high, and there is a perception that the fight continues. At the same time, we are preparing for operations associated with dealing with the flood's consequences, rather than with the water itself.
Helping around the area which was affected by the floods, not just in cities like Głogów, where the flood wave has just reached, but also in places where the flood has destroyed houses. Helping on the site are military and also other uniformed services. There are about 25,000 soldiers helping to restore safety and restore normality in places affected by the flood. And let's take a listen to what the Defense Minister of Poland, Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz, said about the situation, the flood situation in Poland.
Above all else, evacuations and the preservation of human lives is always the #1 priority. Although the last few days did not see any evacuations, including those with the use of equipment like rescue helicopters, the saving of lives still continues.
So the flood wave is in the city. Now the key thing is that the embankments and other infrastructure withholds the high pressure of the flood water. For about a few days, this infrastructure will be tested to the maximum. The pressure is very, very high on the river. That's why there are many services here on the ground. They are watching whether the water is getting through the infrastructure, whether there's help needed somewhere. Everyone is watching the situation closely. There are helicopters monitoring the banks of the Oder River to make sure that nothing bad happens. Although so far the city is relatively safe, and apart from a few flooded basements, no major incidents were reported in the city of Głogów.
All right, well, that's good news there. Hopefully everything holds as it should. That's Ovidius Nicea reporting from us from Głogów. Thank you very much. Now, Hungary's capital, Budapest, has seen the Danube peak at almost 8.5 meters, reaching a 10-year high. This is the fallout from the deadly storm Boris, which swept through Central and Eastern Europe.
Submerged piers are the view many of Budapest residents have had to get accustomed to, but as of now the situation doesn't seem to bother the capital's residents all that much.
I can get to my workplace in the same way as usual, even better because the trams go more frequently. There are some lines which are closed and one of the subway stations is closed because of this, but it doesn't affect me at all.
Yet, this borderline pastoral life in the Hungarian capital and in the surrounding areas wouldn't be possible without the effort from the uniformed services and the residents who fortified a 760-kilometer segment with nearly 2 million sandbags in a bid to save homes and businesses from the water.
The beginning of last few days was exciting. The sandbagging, dam building, saving the horses as the water was coming. Then we finished the dam and we saw the final predictions for the water levels and we calmed down.
The water has also reached the steps of the Hungarian parliament. In order to ensure the safety of Budapest residents, the city authorities decided to close Margaret Island, a recreational area with hotels and restaurants, which stymied the plans of many tourists.
We had a boat tour booked yesterday, but unfortunately that got cancelled due to the higher floods, so we had to do something else, which was nice, but obviously we would have really enjoyed the cruise, so we're going to have to perhaps do that next time.
Many Budapest residents and tourists pin the blame for the water levels rise on climate change.
Unfortunately, global warming has stopped the classic 4 seasons, which used to be the norm until recently, and unexpected natural events can occur.
But if the situation becomes worse for the next few years due to the global warming, then it may have the possibility to flood over this area and even can go inside to the downtown.
Though the Danube still poses a flood threat to Budapest, the high water levels are expected to ebb away in the coming days. According to forecasts, the spike is set to drop to upwards of 6 meters by Wednesday, which is likely to allow for restoring the traffic by the river.
According to the latest exit polls, German center-left party has claimed a narrow victory in the regional election in the eastern state of Brandenburg. But at the same time, this comes amid another historic gain for the far-right AfD, which came in second.
Contrary to the pre-election opinion polls, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz's party SPD got 32% of votes, beating AfD by 3 percentage points, tentative results indicate. This means the centre-left group is likely to stay in power in one of its strongholds, Brandenburg. Exit polls show that SPD has claimed 33 seats against the 30 seats won by AfD, which can still be deemed a roaring success.
And don't forget the popularity we had in this election campaign, this influx of young people, which proves that we are the party of the future. The SPD and CDU are the parties of the past.
The likely victory also signifies Brandenburg's incumbent state premier of 11 years, SPD's Dietmar Woidke, is on the way to extend his tenure. SPD will now have to enter a coalition with BSW or both BSW and CDU to keep AfD at bay.
It seems that once again, as so many times in history, the Social Democrats have stopped extremists on their way to power.
Despite the growing anti-migrant sentiment favouring AfD Germany-wide, many voters were determined to take to the polling stations with an objective to stem the tide of what is labelled by many as a fascist wave in Germany.
So for me personally, there is a lot at stake. I don't want the AfD. I'm in favor of the SPD. Woidke, our state premier, has done a lot for Brandenburg so far. And for me personally, it is definitely necessary to vote for him.
AfD's defeat in Brandenburg still doesn't bode well for Olaf Scholz's future as the German Chancellor. After the far-right group snatched a majority in Thuringia and came in second in Saxony in 2 other regional-level ballots, it now recorded a historically high result in Brandenburg. The pressure on Scholz will now be anything but waning in the run-up to the federal elections come September 2025.
Now on to the Czech Republic, where negotiations over coalition agreements after this weekend's elections are underway. In 10 out of 13 regions, the vote was won by opposition party ANO, led by former Prime Minister Andrej Babiš. Over the weekend, the Czechs have also chosen a third of their representatives in the Senate.
This was no ordinary election. In several locations all over the Moravian, Silesian and Olomouc regions, the firefighters supplied polling stations with tents, containers, lighting and power stations.
In terms of equipment, technical security and setting up processes and systems, it works. And the most important thing, in my opinion, is that everyone who wants to vote is given that right.
This has all been done because of the flood wave that swept through the Czech Republic, wreaking havoc in towns, cities and villages.
I have more important things to do than vote.
In 10 out of 13 regions where the local elections took place, former Prime Minister Andrej Babiš's populist ANO movement won the elections. ANO is currently the main opposition party in parliament.
I think it is the result of our opposition work, of our intensive campaign by our excellent shadow government led by Karel Havlíček and, of course, by Alena Schillerova in the Chamber of Deputies. I will not hide the fact that the result is very bad for the pirates. We failed to defend our positions in the regions. Overall, the result undoubtedly reflects reality. I cannot consider it a success, but I cannot consider it a fatal failure either.
Even before the floods, the Czech Republic was faced with serious problems. Those, according to experts, may have had a significant impact on the results.
Czechia has been one of the countries with the highest levels of inflation in Europe. Last year we saw an inflation about 20%.
Jan Michalczak believes the regional elections, one, could have been an opportunity for voters to voice their criticism towards the government, and two,
those serve as a kind of check of temperature for the upcoming general election.
The parliamentary elections are set to take place in October next year. It is still not clear whether the winners will be able to form a majority that will allow them to take up regional governor posts. In the South Bohemian region, local governor Martin Kuba of the Civic Democratic Party has already announced that he wants his party to lead the region on its own. In other regions, coalition negotiations are taking place. The Czechs also chose one-third of their Senate this weekend. The second round of the Senate elections has been scheduled for next weekend.
A community building space for the 100,000 Ukrainians living in Warsaw has opened in the Polish capital. The UA Hub aims to foster Ukrainian culture, language, and business.
Beauticians, barbers, cooks and drone operators. The Ukrainian community in Warsaw has got together to celebrate the opening of the hub, which will strengthen ties within the diaspora.
It's really a good option to keep all Ukrainian people together here and to change some knowledges, skills and some different businesses which are here we can see.
In addition to conference and event rooms, the hub will also be a space for personal and business development for Ukrainians residing in Poland.
Here we have, for example, a school of English school and other languages. Here we have dancing school and we have also projects for supporting our businessmen who only want to start or to relocate their business here in Poland.
But there's basically no limit to what the hub can provide assistance with.
You can bring your kids here and have a kindergarten here or talented school, for example. Or you can find people, companies who can help you with Polish documents here, to legalize yourself here.
The opening ceremony also included a fundraiser, the proceeds of which will go to the Angels of Azov Foundation that cares for 2 Ukrainian brigades defending Mariupol. One of their veterans, Vladislav Wikipedia Jai Voronok, told TVP World that the space is intended for Ukrainians to stay in touch with their culture.
All hubs like this one, it's like a small, fun version of diplomacy territories.
What organizers have underlined is that the hub aims to help Ukrainians maintain a connection with their homeland, despite the fact that it is merely a taste of life in Ukraine.
And now we move to the Middle East, where Hezbollah fired missiles at Haifa, Israel today, causing limited damage. For months, Israel and Hezbollah have been exchanging sporadic fire across the border. Now the conflict is escalating as Israel hints at a possible ground invasion of Lebanon.
Lebanese group Hezbollah fired some 150 missiles against northern Israel on Sunday, targeting Haifa and the wider Galilee region. Most of them were intercepted, with the remaining ones causing 3 injuries but no deaths. The group stated that the attack was launched in retaliation for Tuesday's pager bombings, which killed dozens and injured thousands of Hezbollah members. Hezbollah is estimated to hold tens of thousands of missiles capable of reaching Israel. Israel's Air Force launched some 400 strikes targeting the group's positions on Saturday, with more following on Sunday, likely attempting to destroy the missiles before they could be launched. Earlier this week, Israel announced it intends to secure its northern areas from Hezbollah's attacks.
In the subsequent months, they haven't stopped for a single day attacking us. No country can accept the wanton rocketing of its cities. We can't accept it either. We will take whatever action is necessary to restore security and to bring our people safe back to their homes.
This could simply mean an intensification of strikes against Hezbollah positions in Lebanon. However, Foreign Minister Israel Katz said that if the world does not push Hezbollah out of southern Lebanon, Israel will. His statement hints at a possible ground invasion similar to that conducted in 2006.
The latest episode of Warsaw Debate will provide an opportunity to see that there is much more to Asia for Europe. Here on TVP World at 10 after 9 p.m. Central European Time, Małgorzata Bonikowska and Grzegorz Nawrocki, together with their guests and a studio audience, will take on the thesis, the best fruits for Europe in Asia lie outside of China. Let's now take a sneak peek.
China has become a global workshop, global factory. And we saw it, how dependent we are from Chinese medicaments or masks during the COVID pandemics. So, like it or not, we are dependent on China. And for a short time, we need to be engaged with China because we cannot cut it immediately. So China, like it or not, is our partner, not necessarily our enemy or definitely competitor.
There are 48 countries in Asia. We don't need, as European countries, to look just at China or even India to find the sweetest fruits in Asia. I'll give you the example of Poland. Did you know that the second largest foreign investor outside of Europe is Korea, bringing in over $1 billion in investment, leading to Poland being one of the largest producers of television in Europe. And we not only brought manufacturing and assembly, we also brought high-tech investments, such as the Samsung R&D Center, which currently employs 1,500 people researching the latest technologies.
And now we're returning to the state elections in Brandenburg, Germany. The far-right Alternative for Germany has fallen short of first place, coming in second, according to the latest exit polls. To discuss what these results mean, we're joined now by Piotr Andrzejewski from the Institute for Western Affairs. Hello, and thank you for joining us tonight on World News Tonight. Let's start off with the question, probably the most obvious question. What do you think was at stake in these elections tonight in Brandenburg? And we'll talk about the results in just a minute because they are somewhat unclear.
Well, I would have to say that it is a Pyrrhic victory for the SPD and especially for Dietmar Woidke, the local leader of the Social Democratic Party. He has put his own popularity on the scales. It was a very risky gamble, and apparently this gamble paid off because the SPD party, according to the exit polls, is ahead of AfD, which was the point and the reason. The problem is that it will be very hard for the ruling coalition to excuse me. I'm hearing some different voices in my headphones, but which is distracting a little bit. Nevertheless, I would like to say that Dietmar Woidke can be very satisfied. He has saved the SPD party from a total disaster. Actually, his win in Brandenburg goes contrary to the SPD policy in the whole of Germany. It stopped the downfall, and it is a save for Chancellor Olaf Scholz, who's a resident of Potsdam in Brandenburg. The problem is, how will a new government will be created in Brandenburg? Who will be the kingmaker? It is the second most important winner of these elections, namely the Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht, the party, so-called conservative leftist party, nationalist leftist party, will be the kingmaker. And it's no surprise that they have received 12%, probably more than the Christian Democratic Union, one of the traditional parties in Germany, simply because they have one of their leaders that was gathering voters was for several decades a member of the Social Democratic Party. So they have leveraged their position very well. It also shows that there is a lot of anti-establishment electorate in Germany that, given the opportunity, will not vote for AfD. They will vote for somebody else, and the party of Sarah Wagenknecht allows this electorate to find a way out and to show their discontent.
So what happens next? Because if we look at the results here, I'm seeing, according to the latest ones, so you need 45 seats, mandates to get the majority. There are 88 in total. SPD has 32, AfD has 31, DSW 13, and CDU 12. So if we put SPD together with CDU, that gives us 44, and if we put AfD together with DSW, that gives us 44. So what happens next?
Well, the problem here is that the AfD achieved what they didn't achieve in Saxony, which is they have a blocking minority, and they can veto certain legislations. And as I said, also what is important is the parties are not here. It's both the Greens and the FDP party, the Liberal Party. It is a red card showed to two parties of the ruling coalition in Germany. It's a disaster for them as well. It's a failure. But as I said, we have the kingmaker, we have the conservative leftist party of Sarah Wagenknecht, and without them, it will be impossible to govern. Mm-hmm. So, as I said, the Wagenknecht party will gain a potential kingmaker role, which will complicate the task for other parties who vote, for example, pro-Russian or anti-NATO stance for government. It is the question whether SPD, the Social Democrats, and the remains of the Christian Democrats will be able to make concessions to Sarah Wagenknecht that will not undermine their core values. Politics is a game of compromise, but will it be a bad compromise? This is the question that the election raises.
Voter turnout seems to be through the roof in this particular election, and it comes off the heels of two earlier elections earlier in the month. one of which AfD actually came out victorious. So do you think that this large voter turnout in these elections is a result of that previous victory by AfD?
As I said before, Dietmar Woidke had made a huge gamble because if he put his popularity on the scale, he's three times Prime Minister of Brandenburg. He knew that he's popular, and he blackmailed the population of the land, saying that he would resign if AfD would get ahead of the Social Democrats. And we have a very high turnout, and he managed to mobilize the voters of SPD. But at the same time, I have looked in detail into the numbers. We can also see that 40% of first-time voters, or people who didn't vote before in the elections, actually went to a different party. They went to the Sarah Wagenknecht party, and also because there's a Social Democrat in charge in this region. So we could still see that Brandenburg is still the region where social democracy is strong.
Okay, well, Piotr Andrzejewski, Institute for Western Affairs, thank you very much for joining us and discussing these elections in Brandenburg, Germany. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And that concludes this edition of World News Tonight. Thank you all for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of the weekend, and we'll see you on Monday. Thanks for watching. Good night.